Standardized tests are failing our students, teachers, and schools. Students are becoming more stressed, teachers are being fired because of low test scores, and some schools are even closing. So why aren't these tests working? The scores do not reflect the educational growth a student has achieved throughout the year. Tests have incorrect answers, and a few teachers in Georgia were even caught changing the answer sheets of their students. Most teachers have narrowed their scope of teaching and are more or less teaching to the test. Politicians have pushed standardized tests as a way to make sure American students are catching up to their peers in other countries. Have they worked? Let's look at the average scores on the Program for International Assessment, or PISA test, to get the answer. Every 3 years, the PISA test is given to random 15-year-old students across the world in the subjects of reading, math, and science. If you compare the United States scores on the 2015 test with the test in 2000, you will see that the average scores have dropped for each subject. 23 points in math, 7 points in reading, and 3 points in science. I would give standardized tests a failing grade. So if schools stop using standardized tests, how can we make sure that students are progressing? McDonald, in her article, Student Portfolios as an Assessment Tool, suggests student portfolios as a way to measure academic growth. These portfolios will be filled with assignments determined by the teacher from the beginning to the end of the school year. In fact, this will show students' progression. The use of portfolios, however, would not be a good assessment tool due to the amount of time and space needed to maintain these portfolios. Grading these portfolios would be subjective and difficult, as each student's work will be different. Another proposal is the use of stealth assessment to test students without them even knowing. Valerie J. Shute, an associate professor of educational psychology and learning systems at Florida State University, explains that self-assessment is the collection of data when a student is playing an educational video game. In her article, A Stealth Assessment Turns to Video Games to Measure Thinking Skills, she explains that the data collected would include problem solving, creativity, and how a student reacts to new challenges. Since stealth assessments would take away the stress of taking a standardized test, why wouldn't this be an adequate solution? Some students do not enjoy playing video games, and some schools do not have the technology to administer these exams. And parents, do you really want more data collected about your child? What is collected, who collects it, and who can see it? My entire public school education was driven by standardized tests. I've experienced the stress of taking standardized tests, the time wasted preparing for these tests, and the frustration of never seeing a scored test. It's time to stop requiring standardized tests. Some will argue that standardized tests are the only way to make sure our students are succeeding. Yet, Finland has no standardized tests and always scores near the top in the PISA test. Teachers in Finland are highly educated and respected. The academic growth of a student is assessed by using tests that teachers themselves design. Students and parents are able to see a scored test and therefore know if their student understands the material. If a student falls behind their peers, teachers work together to determine the best way to help the student. In order for this to work in the United States, we need to change our test-driven educational system to one focusing on teachers teaching all students. However, the only way we will bring about educational reform is to convince politicians that we have to be taken seriously. More teachers, parents, and schools have to refuse standardized testing. In the article, Opt-Out Movement About More Than Tests, Advocates Say, by Allie Bidwell, she quotes Tim Sleeker, a leader of the United Opt-Out Movement. Sleeker states, "Opt-out is not an anti-testing movement. This is a movement to reclaim and do what's right for our kids in public schools. This is a movement to restore real learning. If we really want what's best for our students in America, we need to send a message and opt out of standardized tests.